What if I told you your entire destiny could be altered in the first 20 minutes of your day? Not with fanfare, not with applause, but in silence, in stillness, in a sacred war declared before the world ever knows your name. Every empire that ever rose, every fortune that was ever built, every revolution that ever rattled the earth began not with armies or gold, but with a mind that refused to wake up like the masses. There are two kinds of people, those who awaken to the world and those who awaken the world itself. This moment, the one where your eyes flutter open, when the line between dream and reality is still thin, that is where kings are forged or forgotten. That is the arena. That is the battlefield. And most sleepwalk through it, handing over their power before they've even stood up. Let that never be you again. You were not born to be a servant of alarm clocks, rushing like cattle into a day already dictated by someone else's agenda. You were born to be a commander of time, a sculptor of destiny, a master of mornings. But only if you rise, not just from your bed, but from the grave of unconscious living. In the first 20 minutes, your mind is clay, impressionable, vulnerable, divine, and the world is sharpening its claws, waiting to carve itself into your psyche before your soul even speaks. Will you allow that? Or will you rise first and write your decree before the noise of the world gets a chance? When Henry Ford rose at dawn, he was not rising to ease. He was rising to clarity. He knew that a man who conquers the morning conquers the hour that sets the motion of all others. Edison, who slept in 4-hour intervals, used that fragile space between sleep and wakefulness to grasp ideas that lit the world. You are not waking up just to live another day. You are waking up to command it. But the tragedy? Most don't. Most wake up and reach, not for vision, but for distraction. A glowing screen, a barrage of noise, a tidal wave of other people's thoughts crashing into their still fragile minds. Before the sun has fully climbed the horizon, they have already handed over their sovereignty. You must be different. You must rise with intention, not impulse. You must sit in stillness, not scroll through chaos. You must breathe with awareness, not brace for impact. Because those first 20 minutes are the throne room. That is where kings meet themselves. That is where queens remember who they are. That is where silence speaks and tells you everything you need to know. Don't you see? Your subconscious is still wide open. Your body is listening. Your thoughts are not yet cemented. And you have the power to plant seeds, seeds of vision, wealth, discipline, courage, or weeds of doubt, distraction, and defeat. And the choice is always yours. Always. Let me ask you, what do you feed your soul when the day is still unborn? Do you rush? Do you complain? Do you stagger out of bed like a prisoner dragged to execution? Or do you rise like Lincoln did, who wrote by candlelight before sunrise, crafting words that would shake a nation? Do you move like a storm or drift like a feather? These 20 minutes are not a habit. They are a declaration. They are where the warrior meets the mirror and says, "Today I will not be average. Today I will not be ruled. Today I rise first, and the world follows." It's not about what you do. It's about who you become in the silence. When the body is still heavy, when the world is still quiet, when no one is watching, that is when character is born. So what will you do with these 20 minutes? Will you sit, not in idleness, but in mastery? Will you breathe, not just to survive, but to awaken the power inside you that slept too long? The men who build empires did not start with armies. They started with solitude. The women who shattered ceilings did not begin with applause. They began with intention. Andrew Carnegie once said that a man who cannot command himself in private will be ruled in public. You were never meant to be ruled. The sun does not ask permission to rise, neither should you. Now let's be clear. This is not about productivity hacks. This is not about waking up early just to brag. This is not about some empty morning routine checklist to post on social media. No. This is about aligning your soul before the day drags it in 100 directions. It's about the sacred resistance. Resistance to hurry. Resistance to fear. Resistance to the temptation of starting your day in reaction instead of creation. A man who opens his eyes and begins creating rather than reacting has already won the morning. And if you win the morning, you win the day. Now, lean in, because this is the truth that no one wants to tell you. Most people will never change their lives because they refuse to change their mornings. They wake up already defeated, already on edge, already in debt to the noise of the world. But the ones who break free, the ones who taste the fruit of discipline, purpose, and abundance, they start their day like a general prepares for war, calm, clear, certain. They do not start with noise, they start with decision. And the decision is this: I will not meet the world until I have met myself. Think of your mind as an open field. In the early hours, it is fresh soil, untouched, fertile. What are you planting? Is it the seed of a vision so powerful it drags you into greatness? Or is it the weeds of scrolling, comparing, consuming, doubting, before your feet have even touched the ground? When you rise and give yourself 20 minutes, uninterrupted, undistracted, sacred, you are reclaiming what the world is trying to steal. Your power, your clarity, your sovereignty. This is not a trend. This is a return to the throne room of your own consciousness. Even now your body remembers, your breath responds, your soul leans forward, because you've known all along, that you were never meant to live life at the mercy of alarm bells and notifications. You were meant to rise like a cathedral from the morning mist, silent, unshakable, holy in presence. So let the masses sleep in chaos. Let the world fumble through noise and urgency, but not you, not anymore. The sun rises whether you're ready or not, but your greatness, that must be summoned, cultivated, demanded, and that demand begins not with noise, but with presence. For in presence there is power. When Booker T. Washington walked miles through the night just to reach a schoolhouse, he didn't stumble in late looking for permission. He arrived with intention so fierce, the world had no choice but to open its doors. He understood that every great journey is not made with the body. It's made first in the morning, when the mind chooses to serve a purpose larger than its comfort. The way you breathe in those first sacred minutes, the way you sit, stand, think, feel, these are not small things. They are the blueprint of your day, of your destiny. You are not here to live by accident. You are here to command the narrative. But command begins in quiet, in a world rushing to the finish line with no idea why it's running. You must become the one who pauses, the one who listens, the one who decides. Clarity is not something you find at the top of a mountain. It is something you uncover in the dark, quiet folds of dawn, when you are brave enough to face yourself without distraction. And it is there in the stillness that the true war begins. Not the war with the world, the war with yourself, the war between who you are and who you could be, between habit and hope, between your excuses and your excellence. That 20 minutes is where the enemy speaks loudest. You're tired. You're too busy. It doesn't matter. One day won't change anything. But it's a lie. One morning, one sacred, deliberate, focused morning can change everything. Because it's not about one morning. It's about who you become because of it. Every towering oak was once a seed. Every legacy was once a whisper. Every fortune was once a thought, planted by a man or woman who had the courage to sit, to see, to speak their intention into the silence before the world could interrupt. So speak now, not to the world, but to yourself. Say, this day is mine. Say, I do not belong to chaos. Say, I choose to rise before the world pulls me down. This is not ritual. This is not routine. This is remembrance of the fire inside you that is too often smothered by noise. And now we move from the stillness into the shaping. Because awareness without movement is like fire without fuel. It flickers but never ignites. You must awaken your body, not with force, but with reverence. Stretch, breathe, feel the machine you've been given, this instrument of power, of perception, of presence. Because a stiff body becomes a stiff mind, and a stiff mind cannot create, cannot conquer, cannot lead. Florence Nightingale moved through the halls of suffering with grace because she first moved through her own shadows. She knew that action begins in alignment, mind, breath, body, spirit, tuned like a symphony. You too must tune yourself. Before you engage the world, before you speak, before you decide, before you serve. Do not underestimate the movement of a man who moves with awareness. He does not stumble, he does not drift. He walks like time itself bows before him. Why? Because he has met the morning, and in that meeting he has met himself. Now bring in your voice, not to speak to others, but to yourself. Speak aloud your intention. Not just a goal, not just a to-do, but a vision, a force, a fire. I am building a mind that cannot be shaken. I am becoming the architect of my own life. I am ready to receive everything I am willing to become. Say it, hear it, feel it, because what you speak in that sacred space becomes blueprint, and what becomes blueprint becomes reality. George Washington Carver once said, "When you do the common things in life in an uncommon way, you will command the attention of the world." Your morning, that most common of moments, must be done uncommonly well. You think success begins at the office? It begins at dawn. You think wealth starts with investment? It starts with discipline. You think clarity is something you stumble into? Number. You shape it in 20 minutes of deliberate silence, movement, and declaration. That is where your edge is forged, not later, not someday. Now comes the discipline, the blade of mastery. For what good is stillness if it never becomes action? What good is clarity if it crumbles the moment pressure returns? You must carry the sacred into the storm. When the noise begins, the calls, the tasks, the traffic, the tension, you must be the one who already knows who they are. Because you decided before the world asked the question. And let me warn you, the world will ask every moment. Are you distracted? Are you weak? Are you just another follower? And your answer will come, not in words, but in the posture of your presence, in the precision of your choices, in the steadiness of your breath, in the way you walk into chaos and remain untouched. This is why morning matters, not for ego, not for metrics, but because it is your throne, your forge, your sanctuary, and the more often you return to it, the more your life begins to move in rhythm with purpose rather than randomness. This is the art of momentum. Not the frantic sprint, but the deliberate stride. Not noise, but signal. Not reaction, but creation. You must become the sculptor of your day, not the clay. And every morning you hold the chisel in your hand. Will you carve strength into your soul? Will you etch focus into your spine? Will you hammer clarity into your gaze? Or will you drop the chisel and let the world do the carving? The masses wake up and immediately surrender to whatever the world throws at them. But the rare few, the men and women who build cathedrals of greatness within, they wake up and decide what enters their mind, what enters their soul, what becomes their path. And what is 20 minutes compared to the rest of your life? It is everything, because it decides the rest of your life. It is the prelude, the ignition, the place where you choose to rise as a creator or sink as a consumer. You can tell the trajectory of a man's life by the first hour of his day. Is he reactive? Is he chasing? Is he fogged? Or is he calm? Is he clear? Is he coming for the crown? And now we arrive at the moment most men run from, the assault. Because after the stillness, after the breath, after the clarity and the stretching and the setting of intention, the true test appears. The moment the old self returns. It comes quietly at first, like a whisper in the back of your mind. Skip today, you've done enough. It won't matter anyway. This is hard. And if you listen, if you believe that voice, your kingdom begins to crack, not with an explosion, but with a whisper. That's how most men lose, not in battle, but in the pause before battle. And that's why the morning, these sacred 20 minutes, must not be made of soft whispers and fragile dreams. They must be forged in steel, because the man who conquers his morning is not the one who merely stretches and meditates. He is the one who stands guard at the gates of his own mind and says, "You may enter, and you may not." That is self-command. That is the battle Napoleon fought every day before he ever stepped onto the field. That is what gave Edison the nerve to face 10,000 failures without blinking. That is what drove Helen Keller, deaf and blind, to rise above the darkness with a light most sighted people will never know. They were not lucky. They were prepared, and the preparation happened not in the boardroom or battlefield, but in the silence before the world awoke. And here is the truth the soft cannot bear to hear. You will be tempted to waste your morning every single day, because wasting your morning is the easiest form of surrender. No one will scold you for it. No one will notice it in the moment. No one will take anything from you outright. But you will feel it in your bones, in your focus, in your confidence, because when you don't rise to meet your purpose, your soul begins to rust. Your discipline decays, your vision clouds, and soon you are no longer a commander. You are a servant again, pulled by the world, reacting to everything, creating nothing. And it all began with a choice you made before the sun was high enough to cast a shadow. But if you choose differently, if you rise and claim those 20 minutes with the ferocity of a man who knows his time is short, then the day itself bends toward you. And the more often you win that moment, the more you begin to change the very rhythm of your life. You walk differently. You speak with weight. You see through noise. You hear in the silence what others miss in the chaos. Because your morning becomes your meeting with the divine, the sacred, the eternal part of you that cannot be shaken by headlines or heartbreaks or delays or disappointments. And if you're thinking, but I'm not like those legends, I wasn't born great, let me tell you something. As thunderous and true as anything ever spoken, neither were they. They became great because they chose not to waste their beginnings. Carnegie wasn't born with steel in his blood. He was born poor in a one-room cottage in Dunfermline, Scotland. But every morning before the bells of labor called him, he filled his mind with purpose, with poetry, with vision, and that vision hardened into iron. Every man has 24 hours, but only a few have the courage to own their first 20. Will you? Or will you hand it away to your doubt, to your phone, to the soft addictions of mediocrity? Because what you do in the dark determines what you become in the light. Let the world sleep in noise. You will rise in silence and let others scroll. You will script your future. Let others beg the day to be easy. You will demand yourself to be strong, because you are not a leaf floating on the current. You are the current. You are the tide. You are the storm that moves without needing permission. This is not about waking up early. This is about waking up right, with power, with command, with clarity. Because what is 20 minutes? It's 1% of your day. But if you claim that 1%, it commands the other 99. That's the secret. That's the unseen lever that the world ignores and the giants of history clutched like gold. They understood something you must now understand with every ounce of your being. Win the morning, and you do not have to chase the day. The day comes to you. Imagine a man who does this every morning for a year, not just on good days, not just when he feels motivated, but every single morning. What would that man become? What would he know about himself that others have never dared to discover? He would not just be successful, he would be unshakable. Because that kind of man doesn't need circumstances to go his way. He becomes the circumstance. He doesn't wait for a good mood. He builds it like a cathedral of his own making. He doesn't plead for opportunities. He draws them with the gravitational force of his clarity, his focus, his refusal to live in reaction. And that man lives inside you, but only if you are willing to do the work before the world wakes up. So what does it look like? What does a powerful 20 minutes truly mean? It means rising before the pull of distraction. It means silence before information. It means breathing before speaking. It means movement before sitting. It means choosing before being pulled. It is not complicated, but it is sacred. And sacred things are easily forgotten in a world that rewards speed over stillness. But let the world reward noise. You will reward mastery. Because when the man of mastery enters the day changes. Meetings bend, decisions sharpen, obstacles shrink and energy flows, and the world begins to ask, who is this? The answer, this is the one who wakes first, the one who walks slow but moves fast, the one who commands his life because he commands his morning. And now we arrive, not at the end, but at the beginning you never knew you were allowed to claim. Because these 20 minutes, this sacred time before the world comes rushing in, this is not a motivational idea. It is not a productivity tip. It is not a trend, nor a trick, nor a tactic to be tested and forgotten. It is your throne, your altar, your battlefield. It is where you meet the highest version of yourself, not someday, not eventually, but now, here, in the silence. Before the noise, before the demands, before the world forgets your name, and you remember it first. Do you feel it? That still fire, no longer flickering but rising, that voice inside that whispers not in weakness, but with steel in its breath. I am not made for drift. I am not here to repeat the day before. I am the beginning of a new rhythm, a new era, a new force that the world will not ignore. Because the man who wins his morning does not need applause. He does not need motivation. He does not need the world to be easy. He is a force that moves regardless of the weather, regardless of delay, regardless of rejection. And where did it begin? With 20 minutes that the world never saw, with decisions the world never praised, with habits the world never celebrated. But the mountain does not ask how many saw your climb. It only asks, did you rise? Do not wait. Do not wait for the world to give you permission. Do not wait until your circumstances are perfect. Do not wait until your feelings are convenient, or your energy is ideal, or your path is free of resistance. You rise now. Because 20 minutes will pass no matter what you do. And if you do nothing, you lose them forever. But if you rise, and if you take them, mold them, master them, they become more than just time. They become testament. They become the moment the world turned quietly in your favor, not because of luck, not because of chance, but because you made a covenant with yourself. A covenant that says, I will no longer be late to my own destiny. Look at history. Look at the ones who moved the world while the world slept. Helen Keller, blind and deaf, who taught humanity how to see again. George Washington, waking by candlelight to write letters of liberty before the armies stirred. Carver, Lincoln, Ford, each of them built their greatness in the shadows before dawn. You cannot stand in the same breath as them if you live like the masses. You cannot inherit their strength if you start each day in surrender. You must meet your own name, your real name, before the day is allowed to speak it. And yes, you will be tired. Yes, your mind will resist. Yes, you will fail some mornings and stumble and forget and feel small again. But hear me. A man who rises in imperfection is still greater than the man who sleeps in potential. Because this life, your life, is not asking for your excuses. It's asking for your decision. Your decision to rise, not once, but again, to fail forward. To return to the throne room of morning, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. Because who are you really without this? Who are you when you peel away the noise? When the notifications are gone? When the opinions of others are silent? When the schedule hasn't taken you hostage? Who are you when there is nothing left but breath and spine and soul? If you do not know the answer, then your life is not yet your own. But in the morning, when it's still quiet enough to hear it, that answer whispers back to you. I am the architect. I am the commander. I am the mountain. I am the one who chooses before the world decides. So now the question is not, can you do it? You were born to do it. The question is, will you? Will you give yourself the gift of 20 minutes? Will you shape your mind before the world shapes it for you? Will you stretch, breathe, speak command, not just to go through the day, but to own it? Because if you do, you will feel it. The shift. You will walk into rooms and not need to speak, and still they will feel it. You will write, and your words will cut through fog. You will lead, and your presence will speak before your mouth opens. Why? Because you met yourself first. You mastered the inner kingdom first. You won the unseen battle, and the visible world had no choice but to follow. So let them wonder. Let them ask, what changed? Let them look at your results, your composure, your focus, your fire, and try to trace it back to something they can measure. But they won't find it, because your greatness was born in 20 sacred minutes that they never saw, and they never will, because while they slept, you rose. While they reached for distraction, you reached for command. While they started the day behind, you began ahead, in silence, in power, in certainty. Now go, not as you were, but as you are, unshaken, unrushed, unstoppable, because when the sun finally breaks over the horizon and the world begins to stir, you won't be waking up. You will already be in motion, already on fire, already building, becoming, creating. And when the world finally sees you, it will not recognize you, because you are no longer reacting to life. You are shaping it, one morning at a time. And it all began with 20 minutes. 20 sacred minutes. That changed everything.